Hi, I'm Trevor Austin, founder of Authentic Life Financial Planning. In this video, we're diving into ISO tax filing mistakes. So let's talk about the first tax filing mistake that I see. So mistake number one by far is not including your ISO exercise in your AMT calculation. Unfortunately, it's pretty common to do this, and you don't want to do this because months after you've filed your return, you'll get a nasty letter from the IRS saying, "Hey, you exercised ISOs, you had alternative minimum tax that you need to pay, and you end up owing lots of money to the IRS that you were not expecting." Unfortunately, that's pretty common when it comes to ISOs. So the way to fix this is to make sure that you're including the bargain element on your ISO exercise and hold in your AMT calculation when you file. That calculation can be found on Form 6251. That's the alternative minimum tax calculation. And you need to make sure that you're doing that if you exercised and held incentive stock options in the tax year that you're filing for. So if you exercised and sold in the same calendar year, you do not need to do that with ISOs. If you have non-qualified stock options, this does not apply. It only applies if you exercise and hold incentive stock options. So mistake number two is not carrying forward your AMT credit after you exercise and hold. So when you exercise and hold in the first calendar year, the calendar year where you exercise, you may pay alternative minimum tax. You're calculating that on Form 6251. And if you end up owing alternative minimum tax, that essentially means you're like prepaying the tax on your ISO exercise. And so that amount then becomes a credit that you carry forward to future years, which will help you offset your income in future tax years. And we'll walk through an example of this. But you want to make sure that you're reviewing your AMT calculation from previous years when you've exercised and held ISOs. And any AMT should be tracked with Form 8801. That's the AMT credit form. So you want to make sure you're doing that because you want to make sure you're getting credit for any tax that you're prepaid on your ISO exercises. So let's look at an example. So maybe Rich is an employee of XYZ company, private tech company. She received incentive stock options when she first started there in 2020, and she ended up exercising all of her shares in 2024. So she's granted 20,000 shares. The exercise price was $1 per share, and the 409A value when she exercised, which is the fair market value that is used for ISO exercises and for any other tax things, was $3 per share. One thing I do want to mention is that this 409A value is different from the preferred price. The preferred price is what any new investors are paying to take ownership in the company. So when you go through another seed round, any new PE firms, any new investors are paying at the preferred price. The 409A is the kind of like the intrinsic value of the company. It's the value that that auditors have come through and reviewed the company's financials, and that's what they've said the company is worth from, again, an intrinsic value standpoint. So May exercised 20,000 shares at $1 per share as exercise price when the 409A was $3 per share. So she ended up with $40,000 of bargain amount. Since she exercised and held, that $40,000 is reported as an AMT preference item on her alternative minimum taxable income calculation for the year. And this is not accurate. I want to make that clear. But just as a starting point, she ended up paying $10,400 of AMT in 2023. So this amount, this 40,000, would need to be reported on her Form 6251, and that's how we got the 10,400 of alternative minimum tax paid, again, in 2023. If we continue that example, Sorry, I said 2024. It should be, or 20, I said 2023. It should be 2024. If we continue that example, in 2025, excuse me, in 2024, she paid the 10,400 of AMT. And in 2025, she didn't have any more ISOs to exercise. Her AMT calculation basically, shows what her minimum tax paid needs to be. Her regular tax ended up being higher than that, and so she ended up getting a credit of $3,000. What that effectively means is that she ran her regular tax calculation, she ran her AMT tax calculation, and the regular tax came up with, let's say, 15,000 of tax owed, but her AMT calculation came down as only 12,000 in tax owed. And so that difference, she was able to use this part of this $10,000 credit to offset her regular tax and pay only the alternative minimum tax for the year. And so that $3,000 ends up being a reduction in what taxes she owed, and she got that all because she exercised and held, and then kept track of her AMT credit going into 2025. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with any questions or topics that you would like to see covered. Financial planning is all about creating the life you want. Let's build it together.